Rolling in here, Afreeca Freecs versus Griffin. Very interesting to see how the drafts look because both these games have been played on 8/13. It was Wednesday last week that we got the first Afreeca Freecs versus Griffin. Just a quirk of the scheduling is that we get it again on 8/13, but a little change. If you guys are joining us late, the hotfixes are live. So this is the same patch as NA and EU LCS. There's been a lot of changes to Marksman. We'll see if that actually is relevant because Viper and Aiming are awesome dude players. They've been staying away from the true Marksman in the bot lane, but always a chance. Bans coming in very quickly by Afreeca, Talia, and also the Yasuo. How early will Vladimir be picked? Because between Aiming and Viper, these two players are 10-0 together as Vladimir this season.
Yeah, it's very true. I think definitely it will move up in terms of tier list just because of the two AD carries that are playing, but there are a lot of other very strong picks in the meta right now. Zoe, very common, returning back to that first pick status on the blue side. Generally leaves open the Swain, though, for the red side, so that is picked up. Curious what they're going to go for here. Looks like support, and then maybe think about a jungler later.
The flexes already begin. No Vladimir taken first round. The Kindred priority has been going up and up in the LCK. Spirit, legendary Kindred player from when the champion was released. A lot of people around the world looked to his builds when they were working out how to build Kindred. Played it last time out, was actually bossed around by Tarzan's Trundle. But they still will look to lock it in here most likely, although seems like it's just an extended hover. Maybe Spirit feels better after losing the matchup already.
Yeah, could be a bit of mind games. We'll see if they do return to that pick. They want the Tom Kents for Tucson. The unfortunate stat for him is that he's 0-4 on the pick. So we're hoping that he can get his first win on the Tom Kents tonight.
Now, he passed the eye test, if you remember the loss last time out a couple of days ago. Monstrous performance on the Tom Kents, but still went on to lose the game overall to Gen G. And it will just be picking up the Kindred anyway. As here's a Braum, and now maybe you wonder about funny business because we see a Morgana and a Braum on the side of Griffin.
And a Swain too. You know, you think maybe, okay, Morgana, Braum, bottom or something like that, but then where does the Swain go? Is it going to be flexed into the mid lane, the top lane? Do we see some kind of funnel, you know, with the Braum coming on here? You pointed to the exhaust for Tarzan. It's definitely an option, and it's very flexible here for Griffin.
Afreeca Freecs, one of the best funneling teams we have in Korea, and it looks like they will be facing one. Might be one way to get around the dominance of Kindred in some of these 1v1 jungling matchups. We'll have to keep tabs, but looking very likely that Griffin will be going towards the funnel. Don't have to. Braum obviously very strong compositionally against the Zoe, so don't always want to ideally run the Braum support, but Varus got buffed, and Varus Braum as a duo can be blind picked into most matchups, but then you'd say, where's the Morgana going? So the red flags are certainly being waved, just like you are waving the Griffin flag with your triple facial Griffin logos that I, of course, will continue to see all broadcast.
Not taking them off. They'll stay on for the entire time that Griffin's playing, at least. The Mundo gets taken away after the Darius bans. Just things that you have to do on this patch. Mundo looks like he may receive a nerf on 8.14. It's not a huge one, but let's take a look at this also. The Ezreal is going to be banned. You mentioned the Varus, still available here if they want to move into that.
The big buffs are towards Caitlyn and Trist, which probably won't be seeing play because of their build pass, but Varus got buffed and was already seen as a strong laning and thus powerful champion. But hello, we're going to see Lucian untouched on the hotfixes here. We've seen mid lane Lucian from Perks and around the world, so that could be the case that we might be seeing Viper funneled on the Lucian. And then Lucian Braum, if they're the duo, even in the funnel, you take the wrong face check, you get that passive going quickly because of the Lucian and Braum synergy. Cool things could happen. I'm sure Afreeca Freecs are very well aware of what they are expecting to face here, but they're not necessarily going for winning lanes. The Gangplank can do competitive in most lanes, but isn't going to be in a position of supremacy very often. I think the final pick will be here. Looking for the bot lane, you'd imagine.
Yeah, the Varus seems like the obvious choice. The Ezreal, the Ashe taken away. The Varus getting the little hotfix buff. And Varus Tom Kents, not bad in its own right.
So we'll be seeing Swain Morgana bot lane, a Lucian and Braum funnel. That will be the case. We'd be looking for top lane here. Waiting to see what the decision is, though. They have a lot of flexibility of the comp. They don't have to go into funnel. but it looks like very likely we will. So Cho'Gath will be the choice for the top side. A bit of kill pressure on the Gangplank, but can also be a happy farm lane for the Gangplank. And we got the fun back in the funnel. We're going to have Viper roaming around trying to pick up all the farm on the Lucian.
It's an interesting one to try to funnel on. We've all experienced solo queue Lucians down on the bottom side. He can be really annoying in the lane, but if you're just trying to get him up to 3-4 items and take him out of that lane and just funnel him, send him around the jungle with that Braum, I'm curious to see how it will do in terms of comparing it to some of our other funnels.
And the unique variable compared to previous funnels is Kindred is involved against the funnel today. Fast clear, very powerful skirmishing at level 3, but also really doesn't want to get tussled with by Lucian Braum if there's some sort of face check going on. It's going to be Zoe against the funnel. We've seen different people try different things. Nuke Duck in the EULCS went Smite mid lane Zoe, try to contest Raptors and things like that. I believe we'll be sticking on the Ignite. Wait to see how Kuro can do. Couple performances on the Zoe recently, but overall you'd say Zoe priority in Korea post Rift Rivals has been on the wane. The win rate has jumped down a little bit.
Yeah, it definitely has. Going ahead and skipping the Galio this time around as well. They have their sights set elsewhere. The Braum Swain, I feel like, is going to be more than enough to deal with that Zoe. And man, this is going to be Chovy's first game on the Swain too in the bottom lane. Swain Morgana, known as one of the really annoying and strong bottom lanes. They do have the Tahm Kents to deal with all the CC, but I'm excited to see what Chovy can do there low-key beside the funnel.
I think that aiming in Tucson will be very comfortable with how strong Varus is and the small buffs to Varus and the hotfix that has come through and gone live today, but been a while. We've only had one funnel game in Korea post Rift Rivals. Now Griffin, who's stepped away from the strategy. No Vladimir, not picked or banned between the two best Vladimir bot lane teams. A lot to consider, a lot to think about. I think Spirit's going to have a much better game on the Kindred than when he faced Griffin last time.
Yeah. Well, guys, I did get the word. The countdown has started. So tell your friends we got Afreeca versus Griffin, game number 1 right now. Well, you guys can hear the fan chants. I think it's obvious which side has more fans today. Afreeca, you know, it is early, right? It is 5 p.m. on a Tuesday evening, right?
You had to think about that really hard.
I know. I only cast 2 days of the week. Well, I guess I have Friday this week, too. Returning that to Spo TV this Friday, by the way, guys. But yeah, it is Tuesday evening, and not too many people in here just yet. They're slowly coming in, as they do for the LCK.
The most notable thing to me is there's more Griffin fans than Afreeca fans.
Yeah.
So it's a good sign of how fortunes are changing. The winds of change in the LCK. Something that we're going to keep returning to as the top 5 does firm. Looking at the start here for Griffin with the funnel comp. Expecting Viper to be roaming around with Tarzan, picking up a whole hell of a lot of gold. And I'm also expecting we won't have too many spectator overlay swaps, as we've been informed many times by Spo TV. It's a little bit complicated with some of the cool stuff we have. Soon to be some Rift Scuttles being kept tabs on the top of the screen.
Yeah.
Keen has gone Klepto this time. We saw him go Resolve Tree and beat a Darius at Rift Rivals, but it's against a Cho'Gath. He just wants to farm, so no need to go the Resolve first Gangplank from Keen.
I like the water walking transcendence on the Lucian. I suppose you don't see the Lucian being funneled too often, but he is going to be in the river a lot with this kind of strategy. Also a little bit of extra cooldown reduction for the Lucian, who wants to cycle his spells a little bit more than some of the other 80 carries and funnel targets. Looking to take the Scuttle, and actually the Scuttle mark is going to spawn on the bottom side. So good luck to start this game over to Spirit on the Kindred.
It definitely feels good about that. That RNG can change things. They put a ward top side to get information, to know where the Lucian is going to. Spirit on the bottom side just wants to take away whatever camps he can. And the thing about Kindred against Funnel is Funnel can sometimes create vertical jungling. It can be difficult for the team to get to every single camp on the top or bot side, and sometimes you're just going for completely topside camps as the funnel. If you get the right RNG with where the marks spawn, you can end up getting a lot of free marks that will be difficult in a more conventional game.
Yeah. Spirit, no doubt, is going to be better than my Kindred. A lot of people did see me being coached by LS the other night.
How'd that go, Valdez?
It was an experience, you know. LS gave me the LS treatment. Definitely taught me a lot, actually, about the jungle and what I was doing wrong. Told me to definitely be spamming my F keys and making sure I know what's happening in the lanes. Generally, I was just kind of running towards the lanes and seeing what was what, seeing what would happen without any further information. But I also learned that Kindred is quite hard. Very, very mechanically skilled champion, but a lot of fun. So. Was
there any kind of general tips or takeaways that you kind of were led to that maybe you could share with the viewers here, or also are trying to make the climb?
Well, I mean, I just learned a little bit about jungle pathing, as well as being a lot more focused on my lanes than I realized I had to be. Because, you know, I was a mid lane player, right, mostly, and that's what I've been playing for 6+ years, 7 years. So making the switch, it's definitely a lot harder than I realized it would be.
One thing with jungle is always that the mechanical part of killing the monsters is irrelevant, so you have a lot of time to consider what matchups look like, where you can and could be, where the enemy jungler can and should be. So yeah, keeping your wits around you can be important there. We haven't had to keep our wits around us about this game because the finals having a lot of fun, walking around, picking up camps. Kuro can't do any counter pushing early in the game. So for now at least, things are pretty comfortable. One thing I want to talk about is where this game will go eventually. As it's been an established strategy, we don't talk about it too much in Korea, but the basic idea is that Tarzan and Lehens will be on welfare, not a lot of gold, but they are utility champions that don't scale with items. A lot of gold on a Cho'Gath, obviously the most gold onto the Lucian, who's picking up the bounty of gold, getting all of the monsters and also the majority of the lane minions. But what I want to look at is, in a 5v5 sense, very low initiation for Griffin. They don't really have range initiation out of a Rupture, and that is unreliable at best. So objective control, the first Baron at 20 minutes, forcing Afreeca to come to Griffin is what we need to see as the mid-game comes around, because otherwise they have okay siege, but not fantastic siege. They really are around the team fights and the team fights that come to them.
Yeah, we do see Spirit up in the top side trying to make something happen here onto Sword. The Cho'Gath not tanky yet. You see Keenis trying to bait him in barrel range so he gets slowed, and then the Kindred comes in. Spirit has switched the mark here to Sword. Will they actually go for it? Look at how respectfully Sword is playing. He's not getting anywhere near, and he wards it too. This guy knows exactly what's going on.
This guy tops, for sure. Really impressively done there. It's tricky to sense that so easily. I don't know if he was expecting there to be a Kindred in that brush, or whether in the future he was worried that Kindred could just get into that brush. Didn't happen, and the freeze won't be ended. The Kindred disengages. Good news for the side of Griffin.
I mean, it kind of just looked like the Kindred Spirit just walked straight up there, out of vision, into the bush, and somehow he knew. I mean, they do have a decent amount of warding, but those camps that the wards are on are just not respawned, so you wouldn't see the Kindred anyway. Kuro getting really frisky in the mid lane. The Kuleng going to be able to push him away, but trying to bait in here. The Gangplank ultimate also coming down. They do force the double flash, but here is Kuro looking to get on in. Misses that trouble bubble, though, and Tarzan's there on the Braum. And that will be an unsuccessful gank in the end.
Pretty swift disengage gets them away. You start to see what can happen, and aiming isn't taking any negativity from this. In fact, you mentioned that this is Chovy's first visit to the Swain this season.
Spirit got the mark. Yeah. He just walks in and smites it.
That's big, but I want to talk about the CS lead that aiming has over this duo, unless he dies here.
Look at him, he turns it around, and a huge first blood goes over to aiming, and I would have to say more so, a bit of a mistake by Lehens running straight at the Varus, says, here, take my life.
Yeah, Chovy and Lehens together just aren't able to put out any threat. There's also a 22 CS lead over his lane opponent because Chovy is only 47 CS and now 71. Picked up for the Varus, who had already shopped in a 1v2 scenario. Aiming says thank you very much, and now Griffin with a bit of egg on their faces.
Yeah, you put down your W, you get in range to ignite, but then I suppose the ignite range was a little bit too close for him. Just goes down in a couple of auto attacks and 1 Q.
Gotta say, the tech in the Varus lanes has changed quite a lot against Morgana. In this specific lane, we see Q-Max Varus much more often, regardless of which item build you're going, just for the ability to poke out Morg, because physical damage poke for a champion who walks up to try to get in W harass pretty frequently means that the Lehends is often going to be on low health, and there's an extra 0.1 total AD ratio onto the Varus this week after the hotfix comes through. That means that it includes all the base AD you have, not just from item purchases. So in every point, you're doing more damage with your Q, and Lehends definitely was front row to understand that.
He's got to be so careful. The stopwatch also was not online in that moment in time, so you would understand maybe he's trying to bait him in. But even then, Chovy was low on mana. Definitely just a bit of a mistake going into that one. Nice smite on the cannon there with the redemption. Guro showing off his Zoe mechanics in the mid lane.
Meanwhile, on top side, there's no enemy jungler, so Keen says, thank you very much. Klepto, shoot the Cho'Gath in the face. He's having a really happy time in top, and the farm numbers are really starting to hurt Griffin in the side lanes. As we saw more and more funnel, we came to understand that the power of the side lanes around the funnel was so important. Teams were really counterpicking either top or bot. And we definitely don't see any counterpicks for Griffin in the side lanes, so it's really about what they can do with Viper when he hits his item timings, because he's the only one who's really been able to escape the early game and feel good about how the first 9 minutes has gone.
Yeah, Viper, he's been in many situations where he does have to be the carry here for Griffin. Attempting to do that again tonight is going to deny Kindred of her 4th mark over on the right side, I would hope.
Just a note.
Looks like he did take it.
Just a note, aiming has gone E-Max. Previously, we've seen both Deft and Prey go Q-Max against the Morgana support. Again, because of the hotfix, it still is more damage on the Q than previously, and the Q doesn't get that much per level scaling in terms of damage, but the cooldown reduction goes down, so just want to note, aiming this time has gone with the E-Max, and we've already seen the laning phase going very comfortably to the side of Afreeca.
Spirit, having his way with the jungle, is going to look to take the Cloud Drake here, sitting on 3 marks currently. Just having a grand old time in the jungle. Already completed that warrior enchant on his jungle item.
With no successful ganks, having 3 marks is excellent. And 4, of course, is where you get the extra 75 range, so it's going to be desperate for that. Tucson and Spirit actually come mid lane. I think they saw Braum recall, just trying to create a bit of pressure here to try to contest some camps.
Well, you mentioned the 4th mark. This is going to be mark number 4.
So early.
Before 11 minutes, this Kindred, it's one of the things, you know, you're essentially giving up having a jungler, so the Kindred's like, well, I guess I'll just farm up and get every mark if it comes to me.
And that's why I wanted to talk about how tech has evolved. Because again, we said normally, when we do see funnel, it's strong side lanes. Don't see that here from Griffin. The Kindred's a new champion in the meta that wasn't really around when funnel was a thing earlier in the season. Now we're seeing Kindred, just from good fortune and also some nice pathing from Spirit, open up 4 marks early, potentially get to the 13-14 we saw from Score in some of those really big Kindred performances. So in a bloodless game, the Kindred is quietly having a really big one.
That is Spirit on it as well. We'll see if he can replicate that Kindred performance. If he can play like some of the other Kindreds we've been having here so far. Every time we look at this bot lane, it's just devastation for the Griffin bot lane after giving up that kill. They're just sitting here trying desperately to farm under the turret. You can see the turret HP now below half health. They're going to pull it aiming, but then the binding goes wide. Aiming underneath the turret forces that ultimate from Swain and says, well, now we're just going to disengage because I'm Tom Kench.
Hans has had good moments on the Morgana, 4-0 in terms of win rate, but this particular game hasn't looked great in the laning phase. Chovy, a different lane partner for him. That part has been rough as well, as Chovy's in a huge CS discrepancy. It's still 30 CS lead for aiming over Chovy. I know it's confusing, guys, but keeping you up to date, even though the scoreboard doesn't have them head-to-head, and they're going to lose this turret at 12 minutes. We go back to very early expectations of what you need to do against Funnel. That was getting 3 outer turrets down by 15 minutes. Maybe you don't have quite that same expectation, but in a bloodless game, Afreeca do take the bot lane turret 2v2 at 12 minutes.
Yeah. does open up this unsealed spellbook Tom to roam around the map now. Maybe some teleport plays. You can certainly try to make something happen onto the Lucian. Ganking the Cho'Gath might be a little bit harder up on the top side, but then again, if you bring, 3 or even 4 people, I suppose perhaps it is possible. Sword doing a good job fighting against the Gangplank, even though he is behind. Doesn't have his feast available, but he forces out the cannon barrage from Keen. Maybe just trying to push it really fast before he does back.
Really surprising level 10. Obviously, the cooldown is long. He has a control ward, so there wasn't actually very many ways he could have been attacked. And obviously, there's no true enemy jungler, so there's not much threat coming from the darkness of the map. So curious stuff for his decision.
I mean, you see he doesn't recall. He just backs all the way, and then Kuro comes over, throws a Sleepy Trouble bubble over towards the top. So looks like the call from the team was, hey, there's a little bit of danger towards the top side. Get the hell out of there. Turns out that there was nobody up there, just the Cho'Gath.
And hindsight, always 20/20. On moments like this, we got the map hacks, so we can look really clever and smug most of the time.
Caster sight, it's 20/20 on the Rift.
Spirit walks down, walks up. First Drake went down pretty early to the side of Afreeca. Another expectation when you're winning the side lane so damn hard like they have in this game. And really need to start to understand how Viper is going to be able to overtake this game. Doesn't have the same pushing ability on the culling, but otherwise Lucian is still very powerful as a champion. But if you look at in terms of items, you compare him to the enemy jungler who's 100 CS down on him, their items are basically the same.
Yeah, they are basically the same. Outside of the Berserker's Greaves, I suppose that extra 800 gold coming in, but then you also take a look, and Lucian did update some of his items on the back. Has pushed far ahead, looking towards that Blade of the Rune King for the next item. Pretty interesting for the Lucian.
It's a standard item, if you're just following a build path, but if you look at the enemy team, there's no beef there at all. There's really no health on anyone other than Tom Kench.
There's fish.
Yeah, but
they got that going on.
There's no health, so it's going to be more about pick. Speaking of pick,
they locked in aiming, force that devour. The chains go wide on the Black Shield Morgana. But in the end of this all, Spirit is going to pick up that Rift Herald. So a little bit of action in the mid lane, I suppose you can call it. But the big objective goes to Afreeca.
Aiming with the Season 3 Varus ultimate. Famously, that was the most missed ability, ultimate ability back in the day. So whoops on that one. But his laning phase was good enough that we'll give him one. Everyone gets one when they have made some good plays on the map. Speaking of the map, seeing the turrets, of course, in the side lanes falling low, not quite going to be claimed, and now a duo lane there to try to extend the phase. Funny thing about the funnel comp is there are times where you will see the CS numbers between, say, Viper and Kuro not be massively different, but then it does accelerate around 15 to 25 minutes because you have the warrior enchant, because you just have the ability to kill those camps faster. So you can actually have a very back-ended, huge CS lead that isn't always seen in the first 15 minutes.
Of course, with the jungle item as well, Viper hitting level 12 first on the Rift. He's just pushing super far ahead of everyone else that is here. Lots of pings around the mountain Drake. It looks like Afreeca really wants to get on top of that. They already have a really fast objective-taking team with the Kindred, the Varus, and even the Gangplank. So if they can get that, that would be really nice for them.
I like to think that Spirit believes he's in a duel with Viper when it comes to items, because they have the same items still.
Yeah.
We haven't seen him play the Rune King second Kindred all season, but against the enemy team, you can understand it. Drake goes down, easily picked up by Afreeca. They've got no pressure on the bottom side, so it makes sense that Griffin have to give up the Drakes.
It's kind of funny. I think the Kindred would like for the marks to be on the Drake at this point in time. Generally, that doesn't happen until I think it's 7 or 8 marks later on in the lineup. But because it's so deep in the jungle, the enemy wolves, it's really hard to take that away from Viper, who has total control of the backside of the jungle. So the Kindred might just stay on 4 marks for a while until he gets 1 kill.
How long will this control ward line of 5 stay from the side of Afreeca? It is beautiful. It is literally every piece of information you could want. There's one ward that Griffin have been able to sneak that isn't going to be spotted by it, but otherwise, vision domination. This is about the best game we've seen against the funnel in all of LCK Summer when it comes to the enemy team actually facing a funnel that's not making mistakes is going to be mid lane turret going down here from the Rift Herald.
Yep. Rift Herald over the wall, Keen on the right side to just zone them in behind the turret. And nice objective already taken. You guys will notice it's pretty common against the funnel, but a big gold lead already. Change of Corruption's coming in onto Tarzan with the Black Shield, and the Morgana just too weak on top of that Cannon Barrage. Is this going to disappear? Now they're trying to take down this turret, at least get a nice follow-up on the damage. Looking for the pop forward there was Kuro. Is going to be dodged, or rather blocked, by Chovy in the end.
And I really like what Afreeca are doing. We mentioned they had the winning side lanes. I think draft-wise against a funnel, it's come together really well. The Cho'Gath has had no value this game apart from being safe. Blind pick Cho'Gath, or Cho'Gath versus GP actually, I believe, in the end, was never going to have kill pressure on a GP, and while he's gone even in farm, Klepto Gangplank will do Klepto Gangplank things. We're going to watch the replay, how this all came together. Not the most wave clear on the side of Griffin. You can do a bit from Chovy, Viper can Q, but his ultimate's been nerfed in the wave clear mark. And speaking of marks, we see Lahans start to fall low and dies in basically one rotation from Spirit and a Q from aiming.
Yeah, got chained down by the chain of Chains of Corruptions. So didn't have the Black Shield available, got hit by the Trouble Bubble and just took way too much CC to the face. The rest of his team just desperately trying to save his life. Did not happen, and that's where we end up in this game right now. The Varus 2-0, aiming 2-0 over the 0-2 Morgana.
And it's actually only 400 gold between the duo lane Varus and the funneled Lucian. So that's not a huge lead by any means. Means that while the funnel has hit very good CS numbers, you know, close to a Flame Horizon on the most relevant opponent, I guess you would say, in Kuro, it's been at the cost of a lot. To get the funnel to happen here, Afreeca have taken 3 turrets. They're up 5-2 in the Scuttle Crab. Shout out to SpoTV on that one. They've taken 2 Drakes this game. They're basically hitting the checklist maybe a couple minutes late, but otherwise pretty ideally. And we already mentioned, Valdez, that even in a perfect scenario, Griffin doesn't have engaged. They lack a lot of standard tools to close a game. So I think Griffin are really going to have to super out teamfight Afreeca, and that's certainly something they can do. They are known as one of the best teamfighting teams in the world. But getting that team fight when you have no map control, the control wars they've never been able to clear, I just don't think they're ever going to get the ideal fight to actually set up.
It's not going to be ideal. We've seen them win a lot of less than ideal fights, though, from behind, trying to make it good. Even that game 2 the other day at OGN where the draft was awful, they nearly came back, but it didn't happen in the end. Now you can see what's happening. All that engage, or the lack of it, from the Morgana, the Cho'Gath, the Swain, can easily just be dodged by their composition or just gets devoured by the Tahm Kench. So it's just the slow and steady push from Afreeca. They seem totally fine to just sit 5 members in the mid lane and continuously push.
We usually make fun of teams for A-ramming. This might be the good time as Cho'Gath.
Oh boy, they don't have a Tahm Kench on their team. He's sticking down, even Wolf getting a couple of nibbles there on the backside. Sword is going to live in the end, just barely, but that's another turret that goes down.
The ARAM style from Afreeca, this is a great time for it. The enemy team, we've already said many times, doesn't have engage. Their wave clear is unreliable and short range. Just push up, throw out your skill shots, and if they hit, then you're going to DPS someone out or get a kill. And also get the back-end objective. So now it's a very long lane in the mid lane. I wonder how aggressively a control ward line they could stick with how good the early game can be. And can this Lucian at 2.5 items actually out-teamfight even the enemy Kindred when he's only a QSS and boots 2 ahead?
Well, there is a lot of talk about how Viper is one of the best players in the LCK, even though he's very, very new and young. And even about being the best player on the side of Griffin. So if there is a guy that you want to be on your funneled Lucian, it would be the Viper, but we'll see if he can actually pull it off.
Well, I definitely rate Viper as a great player, and I would say best player on Griffin, for sure. I think he's shown the most and been the most flexible. I think the draft, as it's come together, regardless of whether he said Lucian or his team chose the Lucian for the funnel, I'm not a big fan of this particular type of funnel, so maybe he'll pop off. Maybe he will be Uzi in 2014-esque on this Lucian in a team fight, but right now, I'll be a skeptic, Valdez, and They don't have the Nocturne to fly, and they don't have the force that they usually have had in those big turning team fights. And Sword especially, waiting to be convinced about the Cho'Gath.
Well, he does have his righteous glory. He's just sitting on the right side. He's very thick, at least, I suppose you can say, in terms of his feast stacks so far, but still waiting on an engage opportunity. That lack of engage might just come back to bite them in the butt if they do not find some kind of fight at an objective. Thinking about the Drake here, notice that they were edging on over as 5, but looks like Afreeca is going to be able to zone them out, and they will have to give it away.
You had the exact same team comp and the exact same scenario and took Ornn over Cho'Gath. I know I'd be a bigger fan just because the laning phase, you'd have less kill pressure, but you don't have a jungler, so you're not going to kill the gangplank anyway. For the team fight, you would have true engage, so that's kind of a hindsight thing that I'm thinking about in this scenario. Another objective goes over to Afreeca. If you don't include the Rift Heralds, if we didn't have the Rift Herald counter here, sorry, the Rift Scuttle counters, and the Rift Scuttle doesn't count, it is actually perfect game for Afreeca in the first 23 minutes. We don't count Scuttles in that calculation. It's Drake's, Rift Herald, and also turrets and kills. And right now, Griffin have none of those.
Yeah. And the Baron. Don't forget about good old Baron. So we'll see if they can keep it up. As I'm a little bit skeptical that Afreeca can perfect game them from here. I think there still is a little bit left in the tank for this funneled Lucian. Generally does get far behind, but again, maybe it would have just been better to go ahead with the Kai'Sa. Maybe you would have been able to have that ridiculous late game. You don't necessarily have the Lulu for, you know, the extra support and all that good stuff, but might just be a little bit more effective than this Lucian when it comes to the very late game.
And you alluded to it already. They've definitely had that one Game 2 draft against Gen G that was a real stinker, that they really didn't have too much of a cohesive plan around how the champions came together or where they were strong and where they were weak. While we're not going to say the same thing about this draft, it is, again, on the side of unconvincing when it comes to min-maxing compared to some of their drafts earlier in the season. It's the middle of the season. It's the second round robin. They're 8-1, so they are in a great position, Griffin, but they're definitely not the finished article yet. The season has 18 best of 3s. They'll most likely make playoffs because they're in such a great spot. No one is really putting up their hands. I know I'm not saying they're the best team in the world, and they're only now facing teams for the second time, so this is the first time Afreeca have been able to look at their own game and say, okay, what did we learn about playing against Griffin?
Yeah. They're trying to bait that Devour, and maybe then they'll consider a team fight, but for Griffin right now, it's just about poking and waiting. Let that Lucian get even more and more fed. They're 7,000 gold behind right now, so trying to force a team fight at this point in the game is probably not a good idea. Whereas Afreeca just looking to get as much value as they can on the map. They want another turret up on the top side. With this big wave, it looks like they should be able to take it out.
What are Griffin going to do? They're going to have to pull off an all-in with flashes to really turn onto this. The range of the Varus and Zoe is outside of the conventional engage range they have. Lehan's looking for a cheeky dark binding through the terrain there, but not going to hit. Afreeca just continue to roll on. They continue to push up their control vision. Barring a mistake, we're waiting for Griffin to hit an item timing where they can try to overtake the game. Speaking of item timings, first Essence Reaver Lucian we've seen in a while.
It's kind of interesting when you think about Essence Reaver. It's definitely hard to pick up after the Blade of the Rune King, a pretty expensive build, but if you want your Lucian to have that feel of like unstoppable late game, certainly just dashing and skating all over the Rift and doing tons of damage like that might be the way you get it done.
If you looked at the team of Afreeca and it was lower damage, a couple of tanks rolled in, a Mundo perhaps, and a tank jungler, then you would say the Essence Reaver might be the difference because you could just keep powering forward, resetting your passive, almost no cooldown on your Q and E. But you look at the enemy team, there's an immense amount of damage. So the one Black Shield and I guess a Braum W and E is not going to be enough to remove all threat from Viper. They have very little other threats on their team. I don't think the Swain is big enough to do too much. Doesn't even have Zhonya's at 27 minutes into the game. So it's very hard to see Viper just min-maxing every QE and auto to put out maximum damage without just straight up dying to return damage. So again, I like the item choice, sure, it's definitely an option, but I don't think it changes how these team fights play.
Yeah, I mean, you talk about the damage on the enemy team, but you also have the utility of the Kindred as well. He just ultimates. If you're trying to all in with, you know, Swain and Cho'Gath in the back line, have that front line for your Lucian, and you're about to kill someone and move the tide of the fight in your favor, then all of a sudden, Lamb's Respite comes down, everybody gets healed up, they replace aiming into a better position, they can't kill him, and I just really can't see those fights going very well for Griffin.
The item tracker here is obviously a little bit hard to kind of parse too much from because it's a funneled AD carry versus a 2v2 AD carry, but I think the big takeaway about this should be it's pretty similar, even though aiming was in a true duo lane compared to Viper, who was uninteractive this game. Lets you know that aiming's game's gone way better than expected, and Viper's about normal. Keen walks up. He's got 3 items, including a defensive choice, and that much magic resist on the GP. He doesn't give too many mundos about the Swain or the Cho'Gath in a team fight.
Yeah. He knows that he doesn't have to be the upfront source of damage. They already have Kindred, Varus, Zoe. So having that more of a bulky bruiser type gangplank is definitely going to be better when it comes to the team fights. Also helps him in the side lane up against Cho'Gath.
Level 17. He's at 2,900 health, so you forget that GP's base value is actually pretty decent, and he gets a lot of latent health from Sterix and Triforce and also Spirit Visage, 3,000 health Gangplank. While that's not as high damage like you're mentioning, if Viper dies, the enemy team doesn't have any damage, so you're not as concerned about Infinity Edge or any crazy damage items on the GP.
Yeah, you mentioned how the Swain is just starving right now. He desperately wants to have some farm. He's not going to be bursting you down like that 6-0 Swain you faced in solo queue.
Little moment, actually I'll hold on to it as Sword's being chased down.
Yeah, looks like Afreeca is going to get that first rotation, and Griffin once again, they're just delaying, so I think you can go ahead.
Swain does have the perfect timing stopwatch, and Zonius has double stasis in a team fight. You can use both. You haven't used your original, as here we go.
You get the slow here on a Keen. The culling comes in. The Black Shield is going to block that Chains of Corruptions. And maybe this is the fight that Griffin want to take here. You notice the Righteous Glory coming forward from Sword.
They're trying to disengage the Essence Reaver passive on Viper. I think it's down.
Yeah, he is going to be forced to blow that QSS, but the slow comes in. He has to flash away. And now he's out of this fight for the majority of it. He's just too low. Griffin, they want none of this. Just looking for that disengage, trying to lifesteal off the blue. Fighting is going to come in. Kuro just popping his head forward. Tarzan, unfortunately, is going to have to jump to a member. They have a lot of disengage with the Swain and the Morgana, and somehow nobody dies.
But they're going to get a free Infernal Afreeca. They could have even rushed towards the Baron, but maybe just a little bit too risky. They got 4 Drake stacks. We'll have Elder spawning as the next one. And I mentioned the Baron. They're just YOLOing on it right now.
Aiming so fed right now. He can just come over, have Tucson, go ahead and do it. But look at Sword. He does have his piece available. The perfect Trouble Bubble is going to send Viper out of this fight. It's going to be all up to Sword here. Has the vision. Is it going to come in?
Oh, he got it!
Sword does it for Griffin! And he does have the stasis too. He's going to survive for now, but he already did his job. Unbelievable. Perfectly done by Sword.
Afreeca Freecs have done everything right. They YOLO on the Baron, don't respect the flashover. And that means that Cho'Gath has certainly done his job. That's not going to be a perfect game. The perfect game is averted, and Griffin get a lifeline because Afreeca just too damn greedy.
It's huge. You know, you consider 3 minutes now of Baron where they can just sit back. There's no real way for Afreeca to push in easily. If Afreeca, with this gigantic lead and Illusion that's struggling to stand up and fight, with Baron buff, they could have just pushed down mid, take the mid turret, inhibitor, go up top, get more objectives, wait for the Elder, take that too. But this makes the game a lot more interesting.
And if you're the coaching staff, you've been watching this game, nodding your head, sipping your tea, thinking, yeah, okay, great stuff, they've done everything right. You spit out your tea at this moment and you say, how could this happen when everything before had been so measured by Afreeca, so intelligent? The Flash Smite, we always know that Cho'Gath is going to out-damage Smite there. Smite early came through from Spirit, I believe. It was around 400 health when the Feast came in. Very, very big mistake from the side of Afreeca means that Griffin, they still have a chance.
It's almost like they didn't expect it, you know? They didn't have any ward to spot Sword. He was totally unspotted. Just walked on in through the red side jungle and just flashed the wall.
So he was spotted, I believe, by the last bit of a green ward that was over, so it's just a normal ward. It did time out, but they knew he was around, as far as I could tell. Didn't play around the fact that Cho'Gath could flash over. They cleared the blasting plant, but it wasn't enough. Afreeca Freecs, they'll be frustrated, but they're still in a really good spot in this game.
Yeah. Poking forward, there's only one range minion there, and they're able to take down the turret because Griffin is not in position. But look at this, coming from behind. Trying to get on top of Afreeca here. The trouble bubble is going to come down, but the slowed up Zoe, they get the knock up too. Can they get Kura out of the fight? No, they cannot. The Lamster Spike comes in early, and the rest of Afreeca looking to disengage. Here comes that re-engage though. The trouble bubble is going to miss. And in the end of it all, Griffin can't find a pick, but they get a lot out of Afreeca here.
They use a lot of cooldowns themselves. Tarzan, Flash and Smite, Flash and Exhaust. The Essence Reaver on cooldown as well, as Viper uses ultimate at the start. Seeing Afreeca continue to push up, even against Baron. They have strong siege.
No Lamster Spite now, so this might be their moment, but unfortunately, Sword caught in the front is going to just feast, aiming awkwardly, just not able to get out of that one. And now they lose their Cho'Gath. Afreeca now going to get on top of him, but he does have his Zhonya's ready to go. Does not matter. Kindred is going to pick up that kill, so now 2 kills more for Afreeca, and they can now push.
The full roll of the dice from Griffin is going to be answered by Afreeca against the Baron buff. They should be taking, at minimum, this inhibitor. 30 seconds left on the Baron. Griffin walk up, but this should be the first inhibitor to the side of Afreeca.
Notice that Griffin's still standing here 3v5, but as the turret does go down, only the poke of Viper is going to try to 1v1 Keen up there on the top side. It's not going to be able to get him low enough. The rotation coming on in as a big wave in the mid lane actually means that Afreeca should be able to take out this turret too.
They're waiting on the respawn, Sword 5 seconds away, but Griffin have so little force. That's why they tried a very risky teleport play to get kills. Couldn't get them, Summoner still up on Afreeca. We could get the inhibitor, a second inhibitor turret, they back away. Still full control, Afreeca Freecs.
Really good position right now for Afreeca. Notice that Spirit is sticking around a little bit extra, trying to clean up some of the jungle if he can, but let's take a look at how Griffin try to make this fight happen.
Again, you're really rolling the dice on Cho'Gath getting in the backline and doing something, and while he can't die because he has so much damn health, he can't really influence the fight. A Rupture misses, the Feral Scream misses, Toby's ult is down, the threat from Griffin is down because also Essence Reaver, the effect is worn out from Viper at this point, so you can re-engage, you can push, you fall back to the siege, and it's just too straightforward for Afreeca Freecs to actually find a big advantage, and too situational for Griffin to get back in the game.
Yeah. I mentioned how this is Toby's first game on the Swain this season. Hasn't really been able to show off much of that. A lot of miss never moves in general in a lot of these fights. And against the composition that Afreeca have, the Swain is just looking silly. I mean, you're going up against the kiting of Zoe and Varus and the Kindred, who are just going to hop away from the Swain trying to get on top of them. He's just walking around, flying around, just wondering where he is.
Viper's probably going to have to do it all. Initiate and also kite back and do damage. And with so much damage on the side of Afreeca, and we're already talking about initiating Lucian, you know that looking very unlikely for the Afreeca Freecs to lose this game in spite of their poor Baron play. They rotate around, trying to break all 3 inhibitor turrets to make the closeout even more elementary. Doesn't really feel like item choices can change this game for Griffin. It doesn't really feel like adding a death cap out of nowhere to the Swain is going to make Griffin win a team fight, and that's kind of the struggle you have. It really feels like so much of this game was shaped about the pick and ban.
Yeah. Comes down to if Afreeca is going to give them an opening. Will Afreeca make a mistake? You know, maybe someone gets caught out. Maybe they can send a couple of members up to the top lane and try to catch Keen all alone. That would really be the only way to try to sneak it away. Look at Afreeca. Thinking about this Elder, but they are thinking about the timing, I believe. They're not going for it just yet, wanting to wait for a better timing to go for it.
Fura happened to be in a ward as well on his recall. Can control the map. Sword doesn't have his teleport for about another 45 seconds, so many inside tracks available for the Afreeca Freecs. Aiming is a monster in this game. 2v2 Varus was huge, and look at this, he has a 160 CS advantage over Chovy, who was his duo lane partner. That's a very relevant Flame Horizon, not the 1.5 that we see from the Lucian.
1.5 Flame Horizon, really only possible with your funneling. This is a free Elder over to the side of Afreeca. You notice that they were waiting until everybody went back, bought first, and then they want to just be as efficient as possible with the timing of the buff and keep it up for as long as possible on their strong push with the new items.
Afreeca Freecs, one of the best funnel teams in the world, are looking like one of the best teams to play against a funnel in spite of one mistake that has denied them, so far, a perfect game. Only the Baron steal to Griffin, stopping that from being on the charts. They have so much poke against so little engage, they continue to push, and there's only one turret short of the Nexus turrets left on the Rift.
Griffin still holding on to this one. We've seen them try to pull off miracles before, but doesn't feel like this is a game where a miracle is going to get you back in it, just looking at these later game team compositions. But let's take a look at how they do want to do this here. Afreeca very respectful about the way they're pushing in. They're not saying, hey, we have Elder buff, let's just go in and take the turret because it deservedly is ours. They're saying, okay, push it in, see what we can see. Okay, let's go take the Baron too, and then maybe push. Should be a free Baron this time.
Good news this time, they have a ward over and they can see sword in the base. So this is the sort of Baron play that Afreeca Freecs should have made the first time around. Whoops, they didn't do that. And that means they get no perfect game, but the Afreeca Freecs back away, they won't care. But whether it's a perfect game or not, items being changed onto the Varus, who's gone. Thrown in a even higher damage build, went the Berserker Greaves. Feeling good is aiming. And now for Griffin. The reason why we're seeing Afreeca be a little bit tentative is that all Griffin can do is team fight when you come to them on their terms, and really the only place they can do that is under their own Nexus turrets. Otherwise, they're going to be kited away. So fully committing to a team fight is the only way Afreeca Freecs could lose. They will have to eventually, just because of the nature of, I need to blow up a Nexus. But otherwise, they're going to get Barons. It's almost a 40-minute Baron, so the stats are going to be insane. And now they're ready to roll. They got 6 items on multiple carries.
Yep. Afreeca saying, let's roll. And go towards the mid side with this Baron buff. Still about 15 seconds on the Elder. Griffin once again just looking for that miracle engage if they can catch someone out without a Tom Kench. You know, maybe that was the moment right there because the Tom Kench is not really with the team right now, but still playing it tentatively. Just gonna try to turtle beneath their Nexus turrets and really can't blame them at this point.
Not really too much to add to this particular picture. They're not going for a 4-1, as Keen is staying grouped on the outside chance of an insane team fight from the side of Griffin. Safety first does delay the game. We're just waiting for Afreeca to look for bigger and bigger objectives. There's so few left. They have a lot of time on their Baron, still 2 minutes.
You can see what they're trying to do. 2 members down here. Now it's only Sword who's trying to get that flank through the little hole in the wall. Maybe if he could knock up Kuro here, or if they could lock someone up, that might be able to do it. Poke damage is going down onto Sword, but he's totally fine. The culling is going to be totally avoided, as well as the time. Okay, trying to get onto Kuro here. Does a nice bit of poking damage. The Locket's going to come out here. Chains of Corruption on the Viper, as aiming is going to back off, and out lands despite this time. Toby's in there, just barely able to get that Zhonya's off. Look at the back line, though. Keen is going 1v4 and able to do it at this point in the game. Here comes Spirit 2 trying to lock someone down, and it looks like Griffin has run out of gas. Afreeca controlling this game from the get-go, winning against this funnel really, really easily. Going to be able to take out these Nexus turrets and take game number 1 against Griffin, the number 1 team here. Just picking up some extra kills on their way out. And there you go, 9-0 is the kills, 41 minutes and a half.